The grand hall of the Galactic Imperial Council gleamed under the light of 3 suns. Its crystal walls stretched toward the purple sky of Capital World, home to the most powerful beings in the known universe. Among them stood James Miller, the first human ambassador to the Council, his simple blue suit standing out among the elaborate robes of the alien representatives. Miller cleared his throat, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. The Empire's expansion into the Orion Arm threatens Earth's independent colonies. We request silence. The High Counselor's voice boomed through the chamber. His gray skin rippled with patterns of angry red lights. You dare to question Imperial policy? Earth is barely a century into space travel. You have no right to make demands. Miller stood his ground. We make no demands, High Counselor. We merely wish to discuss. There is nothing to discuss. The High Counselor rose from his floating throne. Your species' arrogance has gone too far. You were granted the privilege of speaking to this council, and you abuse it with questioning our authority. The other council members whispered among themselves. Some showed worry in their alien features, others contempt. A few seemed amused at the humans' boldness. High Counselor, Miller tried one last time. Earth only wishes for peaceful. A beam of light shot from the High Counselor's staff. Miller's words stopped mid-sentence. His body froze, outlined in crackling energy. The human ambassador's eyes widened in surprise, then understanding, and finally determination. He stood straight, refusing to show fear even as the energy began to tear him apart. Let this be a lesson, the High Counselor announced to the shocked chamber. The Empire's will is absolute. No primitive species shall question our rule. Miller's body dissolved into particles of light, scattered by the chamber's air currents. The room fell silent. In the corner, a small cleaning robot collected the few ashes that remained of Earth's ambassador. The council members began to leave, most acting as if nothing unusual had happened. Some even laughed, discussing how humans would finally learn their place. Only one council member, an older alien with deep blue scales, remained behind. He approached the High Counselor with slow, careful steps. Was this wise? He asked quietly. We know so little about humans. The High Counselor waved his concern away. They are children playing at galactic politics. They will accept this reminder of their place, or they will be taught harder lessons. And if they don't accept it, what can they do? The High Counselor laughed. Their ships are primitive, their weapons basic. They have barely reached their closest star systems. As the news of Miller's execution spread across the galaxy, the Empire's communication channels filled with discussions of the event. Most agreed it was necessary, even entertaining. A few worried about possible consequences. None truly understood what was coming. On Earth, the first report arrived at the Global Defense Council. The room went quiet as the message was read. Then, without a word, the council members stood and walked out, their faces set in grim determination. The Empire had just made a terrible mistake. The Empire's central communications hub was always a busy place. Thousands of messages from millions of worlds flowed through its quantum networks every second. But today, something was wrong. Director, Earth's channels have gone quiet, reported Tom, the night shift operator. He adjusted his floating screen, double-checking the readings. All of them. At exactly the same time. Director Roll, a tall being with crystalline skin, moved to the main display. His faceted eyes reflected the stream of data. Check for technical problems. Perhaps their systems failed. Already did, sir. Their satellites are still active. Their stations still orbit. But there's just nothing. No signals. No transmissions. No responses to any messages. The silence spread. Trade ships approaching Earth's space found no traffic control to guide them. Diplomatic channels received no response. Even the entertainment broadcasts that had made Earth's music and stories so popular across the galaxy simply stopped. In the Imperial Palace, the High Counselor received the reports with amusement. Let them sulk, he said to his advisors. They'll return when their economy starts to suffer. No world can survive alone in the modern galaxy. But Earth wasn't suffering. Automated satellites showed cities still gleaming at night. Ships still moved between Earth and its colonies, but they ran dark, their transponders silent. Sensors detected activity around their shipyards, but no signals leaked to reveal what they were building. Weeks passed. The Empire's merchants complained about lost trade. Entertainment companies demanded action over their broken contracts. Yet Earth remained silent. Deep in the Imperial Intelligence Division, an analyst named Kex studied historical records. "Sir," he called to his superior, "I found something interesting about humans." "What is it?" In their military history, silence often preceded their biggest strikes. They called it radio silence. It was used to hide preparations for major operations. His superior laughed. "This isn't their primitive world wars, Kex. This is the Galactic Age. Besides, what could they possibly be preparing? Their technology is centuries behind ours. On Earth, inside a mountain complex in a place called Colorado, generals gathered around a holographic display. Ships moved in formation, but these weren't regular vessels. They were something new. "Project Ghost is ready," announced General Roberts. "All ships report successful tests." "And the new weapons?" asked Admiral Chen. "Beyond our highest expectations, the Empire's shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They never considered what we might develop instead." In orbit, massive shipyards hidden behind holographic asteroids worked silently. Workers moved with purpose, their faces set with cold determination. The ships they built looked wrong somehow. The eye slid off them, refusing to focus on their true shape. The Empire continued to send messages to Earth. Threats, then offers, then pleas for response. Each was met with the same silence. "They're accepting their punishment," the High Counselor declared confidently to the Imperial Council. "Soon they'll return, humbled and obedient." That night, in synchronized movements across Earth and its colonies, ships began to lift off. They made no sound, sent no signals, left no trace on any Imperial sensor. Like ghosts, they slipped into the darkness between stars. The Empire's time was running out, but they were too proud to notice the thunder in the silence. The Imperial Communications Center buzzed with its usual activity. Operators monitored countless channels, sorting through the galaxy's endless chatter. It was a normal day, until every screen suddenly went dark. "What's happening?" demanded Chief Controller Vex, his metallic scales bristling with alarm. Before anyone could answer, the screens flickered back to life. But instead of the usual data streams, they all showed the same message. In simple, stark letters, it read, "You killed one of ours. We warned you about humanity." The message began to repeat, spreading across every communication channel in the Empire. Emergency frequencies, military bands, civilian broadcasts all carried the same words. Even personal devices displayed nothing else. In the Imperial Palace, the High Counselor watched with growing rage as his private terminal displayed the message over and over. "Find the source." He roared at his technicians. "Shut it down." But they couldn't. The signal seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It bypassed the Empire's best encryption, ignored their most sophisticated firewalls. Hour after hour, the message continued. "Impossible," muttered the Empire's chief technology officer. "Their systems are primitive. They shouldn't be able to do this." He studied the signal pattern, his four eyes widening. This isn't using our network at all. They've built something new, something we've never seen before." In military bases across Imperial space, commanders tried to maintain order as their soldiers watched the same words scroll across their screens. Some remembered the human ambassador, how he had stood straight and unafraid even as he died. The message felt like his ghost, haunting every corner of the Empire. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, crowds gathered in the streets, watching the message play on the massive public screens. Alien merchants who had dealt with humans stood silent, their various appendages trembling. "I told you," one whispered to another. "I told you humans were different. When my ship broke down near Earth, they didn't just help me. They improved my engines. For free. Said it was the right thing to do. A species that helps strangers like that, what will they do to enemies?" The message played for exactly 24 hours. Then, as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. Regular communications resumed as if nothing had happened, but everything had changed. In the Imperial Council chamber, the High Counselor tried to maintain his authority. "A simple trick," he declared, "meant to frighten children. We are the Empire. We have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. What can one primitive world do?" But even as he spoke, reports began arriving. Imperial security systems were finding gaps they'd never noticed before. Defense networks were displaying glitches, and long-range sensors detected unusual distortions in space, as if something was moving out there, something their systems couldn't quite see. The old counselor with blue scales spoke up again. "We should negotiate," he suggested, "while we still can." "Negotiate." The High Counselor laughed, but there was a tremor in his voice. "With primitives? Never." As night fell across the capital world, many found they couldn't sleep. The message kept playing in their minds, and with it came a growing fear. Something was coming. They had killed a human, and now humanity was coming for them. They just didn't know how bad it would be. The mining colony on Vega 9 was the Empire's pride. 3,000 workers extracted precious minerals from the planet's core, supplying materials for the Empire's most advanced technologies. It was heavily defended, with a fleet of warships in orbit and energy shields protecting every facility. At shift change, the colony's director was reviewing production reports when his screen flickered. "Another communications glitch," he muttered, remembering the human warning message from weeks ago. He reached for his backup terminal. Then the lights went out. All of them. Everywhere. "Emergency power," he shouted. Nothing happened. The backup systems remained silent. Even personal devices stopped working. In the sudden darkness, someone screamed. Through the facility's windows, the director watched in horror as darkness spread across the colony like a wave. Section by section, building by building, everything simply stopped. No explosions, no battles, just silence and darkness. In orbit, the Imperial Fleet Commander stared at his sensors in disbelief. The colony was disappearing from their screens, not being destroyed, just vanishing, as if it had never existed. His ship's sensors couldn't detect what was happening. They couldn't even scan the area properly. "Launch fighters," he ordered. "Get visual contact." The fighters never made it. Halfway to the surface, their systems died. They dropped from the sky like stones. The last transmission from one pilot was, "There's something out there, but I can't see it." 24 hours later, when a rescue fleet arrived, they found nothing. The colony was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Every building, every piece of equipment, every ship. Even the holes dug into the planet had been filled in, leaving pristine landscape. Only the workers remained, sleeping peacefully in temporary shelters with notes pinned to their clothes. "Civilians are not targets." Before the Empire could respond, it happened again. The deep space fuel depot at Centauri Point vanished. Then the military shipyards orbiting Proxima 3. Each target was completely removed, yet no civilian was harmed. In the Imperial Palace, the High Counselor received the reports with shaking hands. "How?" he demanded. "How are they doing this?" His military commander had no answer. "Our sensors detect nothing. No ships, no weapons signatures. It's like they've learned to become ghosts." On a secure channel, the commander spoke more freely to his subordinate. "Did you see the pattern? Every target they've hit, they're all places that would have been valuable for fighting a war against Earth. They're systematically crippling our ability to strike back." The subordinate checked their latest intelligence. "Sir, we've lost contact with the Arcturus defense station. What? That's impossible. It's our strongest. Gone, sir, like the others. But they left another message. On the screen appeared simple words. This is not revenge. This is a correction. Your empire needed to learn. Every life has value, even one human life. In the following days, the empire began to understand what they faced. Humanity had spent their silent months unleashing something new into the galaxy. Not just ships that couldn't be seen or weapons that couldn't be stopped. They created a new way of fighting war itself. And they were just getting started. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory, Admiral Dex watched his sensor screens show another impossible reading. 3 military bases had just gone dark simultaneously, yet their long-range scanners detected nothing. Report. He barked at his sensor officer. Sir, there's something out there. The officer adjusted his instruments frantically. We can almost see them, like shadows in space. When we look directly, there's nothing, but in the corner of our eye. A junior officer suddenly pointed out the main viewport. There. Did you see it? They all looked. For a split second, space seemed to bend, showing the outline of something massive. Then it was gone, like a dream fading in morning light. Impossible technology, muttered the ship's science officer. Our best stealth systems still show up on gravimetric sensors. But these ships might as well not exist. The Admiral's personal screen lit up with a new alert. Another facility had gone silent. This one was less than a light year away. They were getting closer. Launch probe satellites, ordered the Admiral. Full spectrum scanning. I want to know how they're doing this. The probes launched, spreading out in a wide pattern. On the tactical display, they showed as bright dots against the darkness of space. Then, one by one, the dots began to vanish. Sir, the sensor officer's voice cracked. The probes aren't being destroyed. They're being taken. Something's collecting them, like they're being studied. A new image appeared on the main screen. It came from the last probe before it vanished. The picture was blurry, distorted, but they could make out the shape of a ship. It looked wrong somehow. Angles that shouldn't exist. Surfaces that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. That's not just advanced technology, whispered the science officer. They've created something entirely new. While we were laughing at their primitive ships, they were building these. The Admiral's thoughts were interrupted by a flash of movement outside. This time, everyone saw it. A massive ship, larger than their flagship, passed right through their defense screen as if it wasn't there. For just a moment, it became fully visible. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. Smooth lines that hurt the eyes to follow. Surfaces that seemed to be there and not there at the same time. No weapons were visible, but somehow that made it more frightening. Then it vanished again, leaving the Imperial crew shaken. Sir, reported the communications officer, we're receiving a direct message, text only. On the main screen appeared, your sensors can't track us. Your weapons can't hit us. Your shields can't stop us. We could destroy this fleet without firing a shot. But we won't. Remember this mercy. As if to prove the point, 3 ghost ships became visible around the Imperial flagship. They hung there for exactly 10 seconds, well within firing range, then faded away like morning mist. The Admiral slumped in his chair. In all his years of service, he'd never felt so helpless. They weren't fighting a war anymore. They were being taught a lesson by creatures who had transcended normal warfare. And the lesson was just beginning. The High Counselor stood before the Empire's greatest fleet. 10,000 ships filled the space around Capital World, their hulls gleaming under the light of 3 suns. This was the Imperial Armada, pride of 10,000 years of technological advancement. Let them come, he declared to his assembled admirals. We have gathered the greatest fleet in galactic history. Our new AI combat systems can react faster than any human pilot. Our energy weapons can tear apart planets. We are the Empire. Through the command center's windows, waves of fighters performed precision drills. The latest Imperial destroyers moved in perfect formation, their golden hulls decorated with victory marks from 1,000 battles. Capital ships larger than cities hung in orbit, their weapon ports glowing with enough power to shatter moons. "Sir," reported Fleet Commander Vax, "all ships report ready. Combat AI systems are online. Defense screens are at maximum power." But even as he spoke, something changed. The stars began to flicker strangely, as if space itself was being distorted. Temperature sensors across the fleet started showing impossible readings. "Multiple contacts," shouted a sensor operator. "No, wait, they're gone." "There? No, gone again." The mighty Imperial fleet began to move nervously. Ships adjusted positions, trying to cover blind spots that shouldn't exist. The advanced AI systems reported errors they couldn't explain, detecting threats that appeared and vanished too quickly to track. "Hold formation," ordered Commander Vax. "They're trying to scare us. We are the Imperial." His words cut off as every light in the fleet dimmed for exactly 1 second. When power returned, a message played across every screen. "Your pride blinds you. Your technology cannot save you. Your AIs cannot fight what they cannot comprehend." The High Counselor stood firm. "Open fire. Fire at everything. Show them the power off." Suddenly, space rippled. Ghost ships appeared throughout the Imperial formation. Hundreds of them, scattered among the Imperial vessels. They were visible just long enough for everyone to see how hopelessly outmaneuvered the Empire was. The Imperial ships fired anyway. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes shot in every direction. But the ghost ships were already gone, leaving the Imperial fleet to hit only empty space, and sometimes their own ships. "Stop firing," shouted Commander Vax. All ships stopped firing. In the chaos, no one noticed the small package that had been delivered to the command center's main computer. By the time they found it, the virus had already spread through the fleet's AI network. One by one, the advanced combat systems began to shut down. The pride of the Empire, their AI-driven warships, went dark. Not destroyed, just quiet. A final message appeared. "We could have destroyed your fleet. Instead, we chose to demonstrate your helplessness. Your eyes are sleeping. They will awaken when you learn wisdom." The High Counselor stared out at his powerless fleet. 10,000 ships, the greatest armada ever assembled, defeated without a single shot fired in combat. Not destroy or damage, just humbled. In the silence that followed, an old admiral spoke quietly. "We thought we were gods among the stars. But we never asked, what if someone else had grown beyond our understanding of warfare itself?" The Empire's pride had failed. And the real war hadn't even started yet. The Imperial Governor of Nexus Prime stood at his office window, watching his world burn. Not with fire, but with precision. Below him, military installations simply disappeared one by one, leaving perfectly clean circles in the ground. Defense towers vanished silently. Command centers ceased to exist. No civilians were harmed. No buildings were damaged except those belonging to the Imperial military. It was surgery, not warfare. "Status report," he demanded, his voice shaking. "Sir, we've lost 80% of our military capability," his aide reported. "The civilian population is watching, just watching. No panic, no riots. The humans are broadcasting a calming message to them. Your daily lives will continue normally. We only remove the tools of oppression." In orbit, the governor's personal escape ship disappeared from its secure hangar. A note appeared on his desk. "Accountability cannot be escaped." Across Imperial space, the pattern repeated. Strategic worlds fell one after another, not to conquest or destruction, but to this precise removal of Imperial power. Ghost ships appeared in orbit, ignored all defense systems, and systematically erased military infrastructure from existence. On the colony world of New Terra, An Imperial commander tried a desperate gambit. "If you come any closer," he broadcast, "I'll order my forces to fire on civilian areas." The response was immediate. His command center vanished, along with him and every soldier who had agreed to follow that order. Those who had refused found themselves safely transported to the city center, with new messages pinned to their uniforms. These chose honor over obedience. They are under our protection now. The High Council received hourly reports of losses, not of battles. There were no battles. Just precise, inevitable removal of Imperial military power. Some worlds lost everything in hours. Others were taken apart piece by piece over days. The timing didn't matter. The result was always the same. "Where are they taking everything?" demanded the High Counselor. "Our ships, our weapons, our facilities. They have to go somewhere." His question was answered the next day. A ghost ship appeared in orbit around Capital World. It opened its cargo bay just long enough to show thousands of Imperial ships, compressed somehow into impossibly small spaces, stored like toys in a box. "Your tools of war are safe," came the message. "They will be returned when you understand true civilization. When you learn that power means responsibility, not privilege." In his private chambers, the High Counselor watched recordings from fallen worlds. The pattern was always the same: precise, clean, unstoppable. No civilian casualties, no collateral damage, just the systematic dismantling of everything the Empire had built to enforce its will. "How?" he whispered. "How did they advance so far beyond us?" The answer came in another message. "We had something you forgot. The need to innovate. You thought you were perfect. We knew we had to be better. You killed one of us, thinking there would be no consequences. Now you learn. Humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons, but our drive to transcend our limitations." The Empire was not being destroyed. It was being dismantled, piece by piece, with a precision that made its own technology look primitive. And there was nothing they could do to stop it. The worlds were burning, not with fire, but with change. The Imperial Palace's Grand Council chamber felt empty now. Where once 1,000 representatives had gathered, only 12 remained. The High Council itself. They sat in silence, watching their empire dissolve on the screens before them. Perhaps, the oldest counselor said carefully, "We should consider negotiation." The High Counselor gripped his staff tightly. "Negotiate. After they've humiliated us, stolen our—" "Stolen," interrupted another counselor. "They haven't stolen anything. Every piece of military equipment, every weapon, every ship, they show us exactly where they're keeping them. They even send us daily maintenance reports." His laugh was hollow. "They're treating our mighty empire like children who can't be trusted with dangerous toys." A new message flashed across their screens. Imperial mining colony Vega 12 has been peacefully dismantled. Civilian infrastructure remains intact. Military assets secured. Time of operation: 3 hours, 17 minutes. The High Counselor slumped in his throne. "Send the negotiation request," he whispered. Within moments, a response appeared. "You had your chance for diplomacy. That chance died with James Miller. Now you will watch as we remove your ability to harm others. The lesson must be complete." "What lesson?" shouted the High Counselor. "What do you want from us?" The answer came in the form of a hologram, a recreation of James Miller's last moments, playing in the center of the chamber. They watched again as he died, proud and unafraid. "Every life has value." The message continued. "Even one human life. Even one alien life. You thought power gave you the right to decide who lives and dies. We are teaching you otherwise." Another counselor spoke up. "But your technology, you could destroy us all. Why show such restraint?" "Because we are not you. Destruction is easy. Creation is hard. Change is hardest of all. We choose the harder path." On the screens, another Imperial military base vanished. Then another. The pace was relentless, methodical, Unstoppable. How long? Asked the High Counselor, his voice barely a whisper. How long will this continue? Until the lesson is learned. Until every member of the High Council understands the cost of casual cruelty. Until your empire remembers what it meant to be civilized. One of the younger counselors stood suddenly. I resign, he announced. I was wrong. We were all wrong. Power without wisdom is nothing but violence waiting to happen. One by one, others followed, standing, admitting their errors, stepping down from power. Finally, only the High Counselor remained. He watched the screens, showing world after world being systematically stripped of military power. No death, no destruction, just the inevitable removal of everything he had used to enforce his will on others. I understand now, he said quietly. The humans, they're not punishing us. They're forcing us to evolve. A new message appeared. The first step of wisdom is recognizing one's mistakes. The second is accepting the consequences. The third is change. The High Counselor stood slowly, his pride finally broken. Not by violence or destruction, but by the relentless demonstration of a better way. The Empire had lost everything, not to war, but to shame. 1 year after the first human death at Imperial hands, the galaxy gathered again in the Grand Council chamber. But this time was different. The floating thrones were gone. Everyone sat at the same level, in simple chairs arranged in a circle. The former High Counselor, now dressed in plain robes, rose to speak. We are gathered to sign the new Galactic Charter, not as rulers and subjects, but as equals. Above them, through the crystal dome, they could see Earth's ghost ships floating silently, not as a threat, but as a reminder. Their presence had become familiar across the galaxy, mysterious guardians of a new age. A human representative, Mark Wilson, stood next. Unlike Miller, who died a year ago, he showed no fear, but neither did he show arrogance. The charter is simple, he said. All sentient life is equal. All worlds have the right to self-determination, and no species may use technological superiority to dominate others. The Earth had kept its promise. Every piece of Imperial military technology had been returned, but changed. Weapons could only be used for defense. Ships could no longer carry planet-destroying weapons. The tools of war had been transformed into tools of protection. But how will these laws be enforced? Asked a delegate from a former Imperial world. As if in answer, a ghost ship appeared in the chamber itself, somehow fitting its massive form in the space without disturbing anything. For the first time, everyone could see it clearly. It was beautiful, not built for war, but for something beyond war. Its surface rippled with patterns that spoke of physics humans had never shared. The power to step outside normal space, to exist between moments of time. We will watch, Wilson explained. Not as rulers, but as guardians. Earth's ghost fleet will protect the peace, not through force, but by making force useless. The former High Counselor nodded slowly. We thought we were teaching humanity its place in the galaxy. Instead, they taught us that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to change. One by one, representatives from every world signed the charter. As each signed, they received a gift, a small device that could summon help from the ghost fleet if needed. Protection, freely given to all. What about Earth's technology? Someone asked. Will you share it? Wilson smiled. When each world is ready, when they learn to use power wisely, the ghost fleet isn't just ships. It's a test. Those who prove they understand true civilization will be welcome to join us among the stars. As the ceremony ended, a final message appeared above them. James Miller's death taught us all that the price of one life can change a galaxy. Let his memory guide us toward a better future. Outside, the ghost ships began to fade from view, returning to their eternal watch. The Empire was gone, but something new had taken its place. Not a hierarchy of power, but a community of equals. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The death of one human had not brought destruction, but transformation. And in the darkness between stars, Earth's silent guardians watched, ready to ensure that the lesson would never be forgotten. The time of empires was over. The age of wisdom had begun.